it's Brie from Neighborhood here. Welcome to the first hug of 2024. Happy New Year. You probably noticed I am not Trav. I will be taking over the host position, I guess, for the hugs for 2024. So I'll do my best, but I'm super excited for the hugs we have planned out this year. We've got a bunch of stuff for you guys. But with that said, if you want any topics covered, make sure you email us, get in touch, and we'll make sure to put that in the schedule. Now, today we are talking about common mistakes, pitfalls, things that we often see beginner users and, advanced users as well make in HubSpot often. And to do that, I've got Geordie with me. Geordie's been with us for a while now. He's been using HubSpot for God knows how long.
But almost 5 years I've been at Neighborhood as of next week.
Too long.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. But yeah, we will be talking about navigating and conquering your top 10 of our, most common, what we see, pitfalls in HubSpot. As a quick side note as well, we will be doing a hug on February 28th, talking about the core reports in HubSpot that you'll want to set up first. So make sure you sign up for that after you've watched this one. Now, Geordie, talking about common pitfalls, I'm keen to chat about how this idea came up for the both of us. I think we often see things happen in HubSpot when we jump in for the first time that we see over and over again.
There's a real mix with this where you kind of you look in some portals and you go, oh, what is going on in here? And everything's a bit of a mess. But then there's sometimes you jump in and you're like, oh, these people get it straight away. These are just things that we commonly see. And I think that for some people might have all of this sorted, and everything we're saying here, you might go, yep, done, like happy days. But there might be one or two things in here where you go, actually, I don't think we're doing that right. And then you can adjust for whether it's looking at the things that have already been done and changing them, or for the future, kind of changing the way you do things. Yeah,
for sure. I know even when I came to Neighborhood, I was noticing little bits that you guys did differently, even though I was using HubSpot for 4 years before that I was still doing wrong or could have been done better for the long-term future use, making sure things are nice, tidy and clean.
Let's say if you get stuck in a certain way of doing things, and there's definitely things even in our own portal that we don't do perfectly. I'm not going to pretend that we're angels with our own portal, but there's certain things where you might not know you're doing it wrong until someone mentions it, and you might not have known until you came here that we're we like to do it this way. And then same if, we go chat to someone else, they might go, well, we do it this way because of this. And it's
exactly. And you pick up those things as you go as well. You might meet someone that does it a different way and you're like, I am stealing that. Yeah. I am going to do that now. Thank you very much.
That is mine. I'm telling everyone I came up with that idea.
Exactly. And I think also, what we're trying to say is that even advanced users or people who have been on the tools for ages still make these mistakes. So that's why we want to talk about them today. If you guys have any questions while we're chatting, just make sure to throw them in the chat. I think it's on the left-hand side of my face right now, and we will answer them as we go. Somewhere here. Awesome. So Geordie's going to kick us off with the first tip.
Kicking off with the first one is not connecting your domains and missing SPF record. So when we're talking about not connecting domains, we're talking about, it kind of varies here. So if you're using any of the marketing hub tools, actually pretty much primarily, the landing pages, the blog, emails, if you're sending marketing emails from within HubSpot, as well as even in the Service Hub side of things with knowledge base, connecting that domain. Sometimes we'll log into portals, and I'm going to jump into our test one here and kind of show you what I'm looking at. In settings, right down the bottom, you scroll right down here to website and then domains and URLs, you're going to land on this screen. So this is where you can connect up your domains, and you're going to see here, this is a dummy account for us. So none of this is actually even set up correctly as far as this. So for the blogs, with the way that HubSpot works is that you have a subdomain connected to your blog. So having, say for us, mbh.co, if our website was, say, hosted elsewhere, ours is hosted on the CMS, so all of ours does nbh.co/blog. But if your website is, say, hosted on WordPress, then your blog could live in HubSpot, and then it would be blog.yourwebsite and like that. One thing we do see is that sometimes people won't connect up those domains, so you'll have a random HubSpot URL that is like, so I think it's your portal ID at hubspotnet.net, and it just, if you click on a link and you go to someone's landing page and it pops up with that, you 100% think that you're getting scammed. They're trying to steal your information.
The trust and authority is just gone.
Completely gone. You could have the best designed landing page or blog, but the second that URL looks like that, gone. I'm quitting that.
See you later.
I'm changing my passwords, changing my PIN codes on all my cards, everything. So domains is really important. The main thing I wanted to talk about, though, as part of this domain side of things, is the email sending domains. So as of, I think it's actually when this is going to be live, is today, Feb 1st.
Yep.
Yahoo and Gmail are changing the way that they look at emails to try to protect people from pretending that they are, say, your email domain and sending emails on behalf of you guys and basically scamming people. So to kind of make sure that Google and Yahoo allow your marketing emails to go through to people's inboxes instead of their spam or blocking them, you need to set up your DKIM record and SPF record, which are both things that can be easily done in HubSpot. The DMARC is a bonus. I won't go too deep into that today as part of this. There is a learn more as part of HubSpot's thing. If you do have any questions around that, do reach out to us as well. But the native things you can set up in here is the DKIM and SPF record.
Awesome.
Often people they will have set up the DKIM, like just the email sending domain, but they won't have done the SPF record. So what that actually means is that sometimes you might see when you get a marketing email, it'll say from Brie Ginman at bg@nbh.co via a bunch of random numbers, hubspotmail.com. But basically that's just saying that it's coming from Brie, but without that SPF record, it's actually saying it's coming from HubSpot. So Google looks at that and goes, this is saying it's Brie, but it's HubSpot sending this. What's the
We
deal
don't
here?
trust this person.
That's exactly it. So how to actually get that set up, and part of this is the part that I think anyone can kind of do, but the second piece is that you probably should get your IT provider who looks after your domains, or if you're the person who looks after your domains, you can do this, but sending this information to them. So it just makes everyone's life easier. So in domains and URLs, email sending domains, you can see here, it does say connect an email domain. I've just clicked on that before. But if I go to continue domain setup, it's going to take me back through. So I might disconnect that and redo it. So coming to this connect an email sending domain. So let's just say that info@nbh.co is going to be sending marketing emails. Just a confirmation, that next screen. Now, this part here, I'm going to go through the manual setup process here, just to make life a bit simpler here. So it's just saying, it'll give you the instructions on how to do it. So log into your DNS record settings and then update settings. This is where typically send it to an IT provider. So they'll set up CNAME record, put the host in, and put the value in over here. Same with those. And if you're sending this to your IT provider, you can just copy that, tell them it's a CNAME, copy that.
Chuck it in an email, send it off.
Exactly,
Magic.
it's the easiest thing.
Magic.
SPF is probably the critical thing that I see all the time people don't add in. Constantly I don't see it, I see it all the time. So it's just a text record, you put in the at in the host or the value, and then the required data is this. So you can just add in that value there. You can see here that the current data, this is part of what's been kind of set up here, I think, in our own nbh.co domain, is that we're including Google, because that's what we use for our emails. And then it's also including HubSpot Mail. So in our normal portal, it's actually included that data in this, so it'll actually tell you what's included. All you got to do there is add in if I can find it, add in this data, include, as part of it. So you can see there's a space in between the Google and then also the HubSpot mail, and add that into the same text record.
Yep.
And verify it.
Beautiful.
Nice and easy. Google and Yahoo won't think you're trying to spam people now. It should help with your deliverability over time. It's absolutely critical now with Yahoo and Google. So yeah, let us know if you guys do have any questions on that as well. There is a whole knowledge base on HubSpot on how to set that up as well.
I think that's an easy one to tick off, and then it's done. You know?
Yeah.
It's a set and forget kind of thing. Yeah.
It's also a critical one, I think.
Yeah, a critical set and forget.
I think it's one of the most important things to do if you're sending emails from HubSpot.
Yep.
Or if you're using the landing pages and everything as well.
Yeah. The next one I'm going to talk about or touch on is simplifying automation. And I think I used to fall into this trap all the time as a first-time automation and HubSpot user, because I got very excited and I wanted to show off and create the coolest workflows ever. But I think at the end of the day, if you're creating really complex workflows and automation, it's so much harder to find errors, issues, where something's gone wrong, especially if it's doing multiple actions.
I've definitely got a couple of Frankenstein workflows in places that I do need to go back and clean up. It was just kind of a snowball effect, but again, no angels here.
No angels. No angels here. This was a really important one for me, mostly starting at Neighborhood, I think. I actually had a customer who I had originally set up their HubSpot portal a couple of years ago, and I went back into it this year and I was like, oh my goodness, what have I done? So I mean, it's something you need to learn over time. Now, I don't really need to share my screen for this one, but I will talk you through a couple of strategies or how to approach either cleaning up your automation and workflows or creating new workflows. So firstly, if you're a newer user and you don't really have any automation or workflows yet, I would always recommend starting in a software like Miro or FigJam or something like that, and planning out A, the goals for your workflows, and B, what do you want, I guess, the end goal to be at the end of the day. If you're listing off 5 things, you probably want to split those out. That's where it starts to get complex. So always have one goal you want to reach for. And I think this is something that people often miss when they're building workflows as well. They'll build it out, but they won't set the goal, which you can do in HubSpot. Now, that helps with suppressing or unenrolling people who have met the goal, so they no longer go through the workflow anymore. But it also helps you think about why you're creating something when you're creating it as well. So tip 1, build it out in a Miro first, or some sort of mind mapping, or you can draw it, pen and paper, acoustic stuff, you know?
Go analog.
Yeah, go analog. And B, set up a goal. I'll show you how to do that in a second. The other thing I wanted to talk about was approaching Frankenstein workflows. I think the best way to often do this is to look at the workflow, once again, figure out the goals you're achieving within that workflow, separate it out into as many as you need, because that way, when an error does come up, you can go straight to that workflow. You know exactly what's happening.
I think that's a big thing. Don't be scared of multiple workflows.
Yeah.
Like, there's folders now, which I think we might touch on later on as well, but there's folders now, so you can put them all in a folder, so they're all in one place. But yeah, it's just easier to find the things you need.
Exactly, yeah. And it also means when you do get the errors or reviews that pop up, it's just a single workflow doing an action that's quite specific, or there can still be multiple actions, but you know exactly where to go. So as Geordie mentioned, we do have folders now for workflows. And yes, if you look on my screen here, if you go them, I don't think we have folders in this one.
There is in the 2.0?
In the 2.0, yes, we do. Okay.
There's nothing in them though, yeah.
Yep, there's nothing in these, but bear with me. If you go over to your right-hand side over here, you will see a folders. You can create folders. And I don't know about you, Geordie, but I would recommend doing it not so much deals and contacts. You could do it that way, but rather maybe the team that's using them. So if it's a sales team, you might do sales workflows. I mean, there's multiple ways to, I guess, organize them.
It really depends. Like it could be the purpose of it. So if it is your sales process, you might have that, and sales team and other team members might use it.
Exactly.
If it's your lead nurturing, I mean, they're the most common ones. Or I always have an admin one. My admin one is always like the one that I set up workflows that will copy a property from one object to another one. That are just default things I need to happen the second a new contact gets added to the system. Whether it's copying company data to the contact or the other way. But they're just admin things that need to happen.
That
but
operational.
They don't really have one single folder or purpose.
For sure, yeah. It's more portal-wide at the end of the day. Yeah. So you can do folders here. You can click create a folder and segment them how you will. If you go over here where all the workflows are, you can bulk select a couple of workflows and click move up here. And then you can put them into the folder that you need to. They can only sit in one folder at a time. So it's not so much like categorizing in multiple categories. They are folders like you would do on your, I guess, desktop computer. Now, another great thing about the folders is not necessarily, I guess, going into folders and then clicking sales process and then finding the workflow. You can do that, but you can also add them as a column in the workflow view, which I find super helpful. So I'll show you guys what that looks like. If I go to actions, edit columns, I'll search for folders, put that in, send it to the top. Click apply. And what you will see is this little column here, and you can see the category is, deal workflows or something of the like. So that way, when you are looking at a lot of workflows, you can quickly look at it and be like, oh yeah, that's a part of this workflow, that's the one I want, especially if they're named similarly as well. That can be tough. So just to wrap this one up, I just want to show you guys how to add a goal onto your workflow. So just starting with a basic blank contact workflow, when you jump into here, you can see this little tab called goals up here. You go set goal, and then from there, it's any of your contact properties, deal properties. So some good examples are maybe the goal is becomes a sales qualified lead. It could be that they've responded to an email. So, think about what that end goal is, what you want your prospects or customers to do by the end of this automation. But it could also be, for example, admin. The goal could just be copy this is known, like a certain property is known, because then we know it's successfully copied that over. So for example, we'll do a deal stage one here. So I'll search for deal stage. Is any of, let's say they've gone into closed one, that's the goal. We'll click apply and save. And now, on top of not just having a goal, but you also have a conversion rate now. So now you can see how many contacts who enrolled in this workflow actually converted into that goal that you had set, which I think is pretty handy for reporting.
I like it. Just one final thing on that, simplifying automation. If you're building something and you've got, let's call it 10 branches that then branch into another 10, that branch into another 10, that keep branching and branching and branching. And honestly, sometimes it is unavoidable where you do need it all to go through the one workflow. But again, I think come back to the goals of what you're trying to achieve with it, and you might be able to simplify it. And again, it always comes back to, if you're problem solving, being able to quickly and easily find the issue and fix it, rather than trying to navigate a workflow that has the 10, then 10, then 10, then 10.
Trying to go down. Oh no, it's not this one, it's this one.
It's an absolute maze.
Yeah.
It's wild.
It's wild.
My next one is to do with data management and naming custom properties as data points rather than a question, I guess. And one we find sometimes, and looking at my screen here now, I've got a form that I kind of created there. You can see here that, for your consumers, for your customers, this form with that question makes complete sense. And this is one I think Trav uses when he's during the sales process, asking people about their projects. But it's, if you had a magic wand with this project, what would you like to have completed? Mm-hmm. It can be anything.
Yep. And
that makes sense as a consumer seeing that and being able to read it. But then if we're talking about internally, and if I'm trying to find that myself, or like, I don't know where it's written down, I don't know how it's listed out, something just like project wish list makes complete sense.
Yep.
To be able to find that of what the things they want. If I go into the forms, you can see there's that super long, and you can see the internal value for that property is that entire sentence that's written there. But with that project wish list, we can have it as this entire question that we've just written out there, but just the internal value is a lot easier to find. And see, now it's written like that, but the internal value is still project wish list. So when we go into, say, reporting, we're not seeing all these ones that are sentences that they get cut off and you can't read the full property value. You've got no idea what it is. I've got a couple of different portals that it'll be a sentence and they all start with the same 4 or 5 words.
Like, what do you...
That's exactly it. Yeah.
What do you want?
That's exactly it. I'm always like hovering over trying to find which one I actually want.
Yep.
So always name it, and I'll show this other example of actually in contact properties.
Also, I feel like on a contact view, like when you're viewing a record, and you have it on the left-hand side, it just makes everything a lot more usable and effective and clean if you've just got that, rather than it, like we said, going over.
Exactly. Like if your sales team are spending 15 seconds reading that entire sentence, going, "Oh, this is the project wish list," then makes life so much easier versus read that 3 words versus let's call it 15. Just makes life so much easier. I mean, you can even see here in the contact properties, it cuts off the name. We can't even extend that out on this screen. We can hover over to read it, but it's just so long.
It's wasting those seconds of brain power. Not so much, you probably look at that and be like, oh, it takes 2 seconds to hover over, but it's that brain power of trying to find the right one.
Over to you for tip number 4.
Thank you so much. I'm actually going to come off that one. What's it called? Dove dive, swan dive into it.
Piggyback off the back of that
I'm going to piggyback. I'm going to piggyback. So we're going to talk about, you've got the name correct, awesome, killing it, making it a bit more simple, but also using the correct type of property for what you're trying to collect, what data you're trying to collect. So the reason we bring this common mistake up is because we often see portals in which dates, for example, of single line text. And once they're single line text, there's not much you can do with that once it comes to reporting because it's not capturing that data correctly. Similar thing comes down to countries, states. People put in their data all differently, might spell it wrong. There's a lot of bits and bobs that can happen.
It's even like with the date example, you write 1/2/24.
Yes.
I write 1st of February 24.
Exactly.
And then when you try to report on that, if you want to try to find a report to find the dates that are most commonly selected, you can't.
Yeah.
Completely impossible.
Absolutely, yeah. So I think another thing as well is to do with segmentation with drop-downs as well. It's a lot easier to segment certain things or data you're trying to collect if you give them the option or you tell them what you want to tell me, kind of thing. So I think those are important. So in terms of creating custom properties, what I'm going to show you is that if I go into creating a property, I'll just do a quick test one, and I'm going to show you the different types, and we can kind of just talk through what examples of what you might use it for. So we've got our text inputs, we've got choosing options, and we've got values and other. So in terms of single line and multi-line text, we're really thinking about maybe forms where they're leaving a message or, something a little bit more free-flowing where...
Can you give us more detail?
Yes, you need that context, right? You're trying to get them to give you context, and that's not always helpful all the time, But sometimes it is helpful, especially if you don't know don't want to assume anything for certain questions, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Same with the next one is phone number. If you're collecting phone numbers, use the HubSpot one, because if you have a mass amount of data and contacts in there, it will help you organize, format it better for each area. So if you're getting a mix of US and Australian contacts, it's going to help with that process a little bit better.
I mean, that's probably a good point to add there, is that when creating properties, check if it exists already. Like if you're creating one that is phone number,
Yes.
there's already and HubSpot does it well, where you start typing in what it is and it says there are other properties that are similar to this, I think.
Yes.
Are you looking for this one?
Yeah.
That's like if you've got 5 different phone number properties that are just slight variations, it just creates a bit of a mess.
Yeah, and then you're going into reporting and you have to select all 5 to report on them, but it's going to be messy anyway.
Not a good report.
Something that often happens is when people are creating forms, especially new users, because they allow you the chance to just drag over a single line text or a drop down, and you think you're just creating a field for a form, but you're actually creating a new property, which is where the naming thing can come in as well. People think they're just creating a form field, like building a website, but you're creating data collection, which will be used on your contact record. Single checkboxes, always used for yes, no, true, false. You can't change what it says. I'm pretty sure it's yes or no. Yeah. For the single checkbox. Yeah. So if you're just doing a yes or no, use the single checkbox.
Typically just yes.
Yeah.
If it's unticked, it's no. You have to make that assumption. If it's ticked, it's a yes.
Exactly. Multiple checkboxes. Trying to think of a use case for that one.
When you've got multiple
options, right?
Which service are you interested in?
1, 2, 3.
Yeah, if there's multiple services you offer, multiple products, which one are you interested in?
Yeah.
They can select multiple ones.
Yeah, and once again, the difference between that and using an easy single line is that you're telling them what they can pick from, and they're not telling you. Drop down select, a single selection out of multiple options. Date picker, this is one we've already talked about, kind of making sure the formatting is correct. And it's also a better user experience, the date picker, instead of having to type in a date. I think selecting it can be a lot easier as well. Now, there's other ones like numbers and calculations and scores. We'll get into scores a bit later in this video. And also files as well is quite obvious as well. The last one, HubSpot users. See a lot of people type in HubSpot users, or as maybe a sales rep that's looking after it. Using that HubSpot user will allow you to select the actual person that's within HubSpot, making the reporting a lot easier and smoother if that person leaves the business as well. You'll have a better idea of what's happened. Yeah.
One final thing I was going to make mention of with the using the correct property for data type is try and use drop down or multiple checkbox. Give the people the options as much as you can. If it's something important that you want to report on, I think quite often, like you said with dates, people putting in dates, or if it's what service you're interested in, if you've got a set number of services or which product, if you've got set products, they shouldn't need to type that in because they could misspell, they could type in the wrong thing. Give them the options of what to select, and then it's crystal clear what they're selecting. It's not only for your customers when they're filling out a form, I guess that's the easy example, but internal for managing, let's say it's a deal pipeline. If your sales team are allowing them to type in everything from, it could be the client's company name they're typing in, there could be PTY, I could put in PTY Ltd and you might not have that included, and there's just so many variables whereby if it's drop down select as much as possible, it's not always possible, but just reporting it just makes life so much easier.
Yeah, absolutely agree. All right, your turn.
Tip number 5, using the email tool effectively. I think this is the thing where when you go into HubSpot, and in particular, and I mean, not even just, I was going to say sales teams, but not even sales teams, just being able to log and track emails in HubSpot is one of the key critical features that everyone should really use. And there's some emails you shouldn't log, and we'll get into that actually in the next tip.
Yep.
Spoiler. But there is the email tool, which when you go to connect up it says personal email, definitely don't connect up your personal, connect up your
Don't do that.
Work email.
You don't want to get my subscriptions.
No,
Geordie doesn't want to see my subscriptions.
I don't need the personal emails. But logging and tracking of emails, there is a section underneath it, and I will actually bring it up on my screen so you should be able to see it here in just a second. So when you're going up into the account at the top there, profile and preferences, and then connecting up the email, there's the connecting personal email, work email. But if you come down the bottom here, download the email extension and download the one that is appropriate for whichever platform that you're using, whether it's Gmail, Office 365 or Outlook.
Yep.
But the main thing I want to touch on here is just using it effectively. So this is Gmail. Whichever platform you use is going to look just slightly different.
Yep.
All these functions should all be there, but just slightly different. I think the main one that I see, like there's mixed portals where some people use the meeting links tool, some don't. Really handy tool if you don't use it. But templates here is the main one I want to focus on. That if you're writing the same email all the time, we do our weekly updates. You'll see here it's the most recently used one for me.
Yep.
But if you're writing the same thing every single week or every single day, or just you write basically the same thing, that's just some slight variations, create templates inside HubSpot. It's under conversations and then templates. Confirm
Yes.
that?
Hold on. Confirming. Confirmed.
Confirmed.
Confirmed. Conversations templates.
And add in those templates that you're commonly using. I'm pretty certain it actually pops up as a prompt if you do send the same email a couple of times.
That's cool.
But you'll see here, like I'll put in Brie's name here, and if I click on templates, let's just do our weekly update email as the example. It spits out everything there, and we've got personalization in there, so it actually addresses Brie by first name. Now, you can see here we've got placeholder text. We obviously go in there and personalize it all for what we need to say. It's such a simple thing that the email's written for me, good to go. I just add in my context, and again, for sales, I think for sales teams actually, everyone writes differently. Like how you write or you talk to your customers or clients is different to how I might talk.
It is, yeah.
It'd be a bit weird if we were all robotic saying the most identical same thing. So, I mean, this was my template. I hope you had a cracking weekend. I know everybody else in the company changes it every single week.
I delete it every week because I do not say cracking.
I like to dabble in a little bit of cracking.
Well, I just think if you're going to say cracking every week, like you're going to change it up a little bit.
I update it.
Yeah, no.
I alternate.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're going to change that every single week to tailor how you speak. But again, coming back to the whole root of why we're talking about these templates is that email's written. If it's an email that you're writing once a week or even it's once a month, the time that you could save in that is just over time, so much time.
Yep. I've had people who had Word documents of things they were copying and pasting every single time, and they were using HubSpot. Like, look, do this. So if you have one of those Word documents or in your notes where you copy and paste it every time, turn it into a template and then you're done. Like, it makes it so much easier. Yeah.
I guess the next piece on that is if it's like a phrase that you're always saying, or it's terms and conditions, or it's something. There's the not sequences, snippets, the one right beside it.
Yeah.
The snippets part, which you can add in a hotkey with a hash and add it in, or you can click here and actually scroll through. If I click on snippets, scroll through all of these, and you can hover over and it has all the details.
Yeah,
here.
I think a good use case for snippets is if you are someone who is often educating your customers on something, like we might with HubSpot, or it might be a simple question like, how do I connect my personal email to HubSpot? And you can create a snippet for that, and so you're not rewriting it every single time. I guess you need to make sure it's always up to date, but it saves a lot of time. You know it's there and it's done.
We've actually got a few set up in ours that are knowledge-based articles linking to different things.
Exactly,
so if it's not something that a template is for the entire email, snippet is a paragraph, let's say, or a couple of paragraphs. They're the two main things I wanted to touch on because they're so easy to set up and use, and they're just kind of here. But do explore these other tools if you're not currently using them.
Definitely.
So useful. And actually, one final thing is actually the Chrome extension for the HubSpot sales tool. Won't click on mine because there might be some emails in there.
Secret data.
Yes, my personal emails. But it'll actually show you when people have opened your emails that you've sent to them or clicked links in them. It might sound a little bit creepy monitoring people, but if there's an email where someone's opening up, say, one of my weekly updates or the project plan, they're opening it up multiple times and clicking the link and having a look at it, I'm like, wait, have I missed something? And I go back and take a look and I'm like, no, everything's all good. And next time I speak to them, I'll bring it up and go, hey, I saw you were taking a look at this. Is everything all good? And most of the time they're like, yeah, no worries. I just want to double check this time or...
Absolutely. And if you're a salesperson, you might see someone opening it like a contract a couple of times, and that might, be your chance to get in as a hot lead, someone who's looking at that point in time as well. I've seen that be really useful.
Yeah. Awesome. That is using the email tool effectively. Tip number 5.
Well, it's my turn. Thank you, Geordie. What are we up to? Number 6. So Geordie kind of already brought this up, but it's talking about managing your never log list and also ensuring you're avoiding logging your personal emails. So as Geordie had already said, the main thing to avoiding that is making sure you're connecting your work email and not your personal email. But I know myself and probably other people do use their work email sometimes to sign up for subscriptions, especially if maybe you want to get a free box or something. All the emails are used up. You might use your work email, but you don't want those emails to be logging in the CRM system because they're clogging up, room, and it's just not needed in there. And it could sway your reporting as well, ultimately. So I'm going to quickly show you how to jump to that. Geordie kind of already scrolled past it, but what you're going to do is go to settings, and you're going to go to general, and if you scroll down here, we've got the never log list. So emails sent to these addresses that we'll define will not automatically be saved to your CRM. I do think if you manually select it in Gmail, you can log it, but otherwise it will remove it.
Just by default.
Yeah, so let's do a bit of a practice one. I'm going to go add emails or domains, and from here you can just put as many as you want, and you just need to separate them via a comma or a space. So for example, I love my Disney Plus. Disney Plus is the best anyway. This is not a plug, I promise. So,
sponsored.
Yeah, I could put Disney.com because maybe I used my work email for some reason to sign up for Disney Plus, So I would do that. Some other ones is people who get notifications or what do you call operational kind of emails, you know what I mean, that come through all the time. Maybe you don't want to log those, or maybe you have a friend that emails, that your work email specifically, don't need to log those ones. So you would continue to put in either a domain like disney.com, or you would put a actual email. So I might not want to log your emails. I put gr@neighborhood.com. Don't want to see it in my CRM.
I mean, that's one thing is we don't log internal emails. We've got at mbh.co not logged because the amount of emails we're all CC'd on and emailing each other.
Absolutely, yeah.
There's so many emails will just clog up everything else.
Yeah, exactly. So what I just showed you then was the personal side of things. So that's things that you set personally, but there is an account-wide area. So if you go down to, you're already in settings, go down to objects and then activities.
And this will be for super admins as well.
Yes, super admins. You'll have your never log here. So just keep in mind, if you put the domains or emails in this one, it's going to be account wide. So yeah, just keep that in mind. A good example is the neighborhood ones that,
internal emails.
Yep.
I always use the example with people is because I've seen it in portals, whereby if you're emailing, say, your accountant, like I'm emailing my accountant about my finances, I'm doing my tax for this year. I don't want everyone in the CRM to see my tax.
No, thank you.
And everything I'm buying. So you will put in your accountant's email in it. You can also do it via the sales extension as well. When you untick the log in the right corner, it'll say add to never log list. Again, that's your personal one though, not the account wide. I think when we're talking account wide, it's internals. Sometimes when we've emailed Zoom support, let's say, I always add that to it. All the platforms we use, their support, I don't add to. I add them all to the never log because I don't want it in the CRM.
Number 7, over to you.
Regularly tidying data and content. this is an easy one to fall into of never tidying anything up because it just takes time and needs time and effort to actually do. Over time, portals can get messy, like the amount of properties, when we're talking about properties just before, the amount of properties that are just useless and they don't have any data in them, someone created it and didn't actually follow through with it. The amount of workflows that are unused, reports that are unused, everything across the portal, even old landing pages that are still live and it's got incorrect data. There's so many places, there's so many things you're creating in HubSpot that can create a mess later on. So allocating time, even if it's, let's call it 15 minutes a week, Monday morning, very first thing, people go through, look at all the contacts that have been recently created, delete any ones that you know are spam, that are, or just aren't required in the system anymore, any of those support emails. There's a couple of tools that we can use for finding that sort of stuff. So if you've got operations professional or enterprise, there is the data quality, where if I'm just in contacts here, there is data quality just here. They make it nice and easy, where you can see the amount of properties in the system, how many have no data, how many are unused, how many are duplicates. And this is our test account, so there's obviously a lot of issues here.
A lot of test at neighborhood.co.
There's a lot of test ones. That's just properties, cleaning up that stuff. I'll come back to this formatting issues in just a second as well. The workflows unused, needs review workflows as well, just going through and tidying those sort of things up. Again, I'll come back to records here and the formatting issues, but I will just go into workflows. And I'll just use workflows as an example. You can go and look at, let's say you go look at landing pages and you just look at which ones are unpublished, or look at the published date, or last updated date. And if we're talking it's 5 years ago, check that information's still accurate, because probably not.
Most likely.
Most likely not. But even if you don't have Operations Hub to be able to access that data quality and look at the properties and all that information, coming to workflows, if I wanted to tidy them up, you can go across the top here and look at unused. And you can find all the ones look at these unnamed, these test ones. Good chance no one's using these or needs these. So we can highlight all them and delete them and tidy them up. Do that across your landing pages, do that across your blogs, your emails, anywhere that you're creating things, go through and tidy them up. Even like tickets and deals might need to tidy up.
Absolutely, Ones
that shouldn't have been created, but they were.
They went stale or
duplicates.
Duplicates. On the workflows, something I found useful is if you need to get those reviewed before you delete them, use the folders that I talked about earlier, put them into a to archive or to delete folder. That way, if you do it every Monday, but your manager or the person who needs to check it can only do it once a month, then there's a folder there ready to go.
That's a great shout. So I've just created that one to archive, and you can just share that link to them first of the month. As for the other piece of it, of keeping data tidy, was that formatting side of things. Again, with Operations Hub Pro, you can run some simple automations that are already ready set in the system that will, if I fix formatting issues, that will add capitalization to first name and last name, fix numbers and everything. I won't look at that right now. What I wanted to look at is manage duplicates, which this is across all. I could be very wrong there. I will need to triple check that.
Keep talking and I'll update you.
We'll drag this on a little bit here. But you see here for manage duplicates, all these are basically duplicates just because of the matching of test first at mbh.co, like a number shouldn't matter. So these, you can go through and select all.
All products and plans. Everywhere.
It's everywhere?
It is everywhere. Anyone can do this.
I was bang on the money there. But you can go through and review. If I go through all of these and I can click review, merging them based on a different criteria here. You can look at creating the most, because I've selected bulk of them, you could do whichever one was created first, most recent engaged. I mean, that makes sense if you're sending them emails. Or if you do them one by one, I think that same window will pop up. You can choose which one is the primary one. So this person could have, it could be my personal email and my work email you want to merge, but because we're on a work basis, then you might keep my work email as the primary. So any marketing emails get sent to that, anything like that. So review this often. Right now, that 1,700 in this portal is a scary number.
Yes.
But if you're doing it weekly or monthly, it's down to way smaller numbers and way better.
Absolutely.
But a very, very common thing is, I mean, you go in there and there's contacts without first names as well. I mean, data quality is another part of this, really.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And I think everything we've talked about so far kind of actually comes together with data cleanliness and stuff, because if you're doing that, you will have all these tips, you will have a cleaner portal overall.
And better reporting.
Yeah, better reporting, exactly. Who doesn't love some reporting? Cool. So for the next tip, what we're going to talk about is taking advantage of HubSpot resources. The reason I put this one in is because a lot of people I've worked with before didn't actually realize that help was available for them. And if you do have a specialist that you work with, definitely, you can take advantage for those types of things. But there is a wealth of knowledge and a really quick and easy way to get an answer. If you're talking to your specialist, it could take a couple of hours. If you're talking to HubSpot, it could take a couple of seconds to find your solution. So
I guess we're talking also about things that there's always going to be things that if you're working with an agency, like our clients working with us, that they might go, I know this is such a simple and easy thing. I don't want to bug them. And honestly, we're more than happy to answer every single question. But it might be that you can use some of these resources to find your answer.
Yeah.
And if you still can't find the answer, then you do need someone. But it's all there available.
Exactly.
Not to put us out of a job.
No, wait. Send us emails. So there's 3 main areas that I would highly recommend. The first being is the help bubble, which I believe is for anyone who has a HubSpot account. You can have access to it.
It'll be any of the paid.
So any starter.
If you're on free, I don't think you. Maybe it's live. You don't get.
Might be. Yeah. So if I click on this little help bubble over here, I won't take up someone's time right now. But if you go into here, you can go down here and click contact support. And I believe they are off today, but they will tell you if they're off, which is really helpful as well. You can either email them, which would take a little bit longer because sometimes they're pretty quick. But if it's more of a larger one, you might want to do an email. You can book a call with them or a call back. And then also the one that honestly we use as well is the chat. So you will be connected to a HubSpot a person who works at HubSpot, and they will be able to help you with your problem. Sometimes they send GIFs. I know they've sent video recordings before, stuff like that. So they can be super helpful.
I think the funny thing is, and you might even know the story I'm about to say now, is that with our YouTube, we've got all the how-tos and there's a ton of knowledge in there as well. But we've had it before that one of our staff members hit up the chat and was like, hey, I'm wondering how to do this. And they sent back one of our own YouTube videos, which is really funny.
Thank you for the resource. That's great. That's so good.
The fact we didn't even know it was on our YouTube.
But they will, go above and beyond to find you a quick answer to help you out. And I believe because you're coming straight from your portal, they'll know a bit about your portal as well. So they'll have that information readily available to help you. So you don't need to worry about the
being able to see things.
Yeah.
There is a setting though, and it's not common I see it switched off, but there is a setting where you can stop support from accessing. Okay. So if there is sensitive data in your portal, some people have that turned on. If you turn it on, it gives them access. Support's going to be not very helpful if you can't provide examples. I mean, actually, that's a big thing is provide them examples, links to the contact you're looking at or the workflow you're having issues with. Because otherwise, if they don't know what you're looking at, how can they help answer?
Absolutely, yeah. After that, the community is amazing. I jump on the community maybe once a week to answer some questions. So if there is something that maybe they weren't able to answer and you're not working with an agency or a HubSpot specialist, you can jump onto the community. There's a bunch of people ready to help as well. So that's always helpful. The other one is if you go to your drop down and you go to HubSpot Academy, there are some amazing courses where if you're a beginner in HubSpot and you have no idea what you're doing, you're starting from scratch, these will take you through everything.
There's so much there.
So much content to learn. If you even put aside 30 minutes a day to listen to one of the videos, you will learn so much so quickly. And you get a little certificate at the end, which I like putting on my LinkedIn. So that's a plus.
Until we get all new starters here at Neighbourhood, we'll go through like weeks of these videos because there's so many, and there's a huge list we have of all the core ones that we get all our guys to go through. It's a punish to get through them all because there is so many, but like the amount of stuff you learn from in there is crazy.
Yeah, exactly. The final thing is Google. And the reason I say Google is because you can say something like how to create an email draft HubSpot. If you put that HubSpot keyword, the first result is most likely going to be a knowledge base article that they update often and have so much information, step-by-step guides on how to do something. So I think that's often forgotten. That knowledge base is there and there's so much information in it. I still use it to this day, especially with some of even the more complicated stuff they'll have on there. As well as if you're more on the developer side of things, similar thing, they've got a knowledge base for the dev tools as well, and all the documentation there. So 1, 2, 3, we've got the chat community, 4 actually, chat community, HubSpot Academy, and the knowledge base as well.
Or us.
If come talk to me.
Come chat. Number 9. This is more of a commonly missed feature that people they either don't know about or don't really use it effectively. Like I've had clients where they use sequences to send just one single email when it can be used for multiple. What a sequence is it's an automation, and I will go in there to kind of show you examples. It's an automation and how it differs from, say, workflows. Workflows, if you're sending sequences are ideal for outreach. So if you're sending a workflow, when we're talking about workflows, a nurturing email, let's call it, it'll be set up as a marketing email and it'll have you can design it however you want, and it'll have the unsubscribe down the bottom there. People can unsubscribe and you can't send them those emails anymore. Sequences is where you can send templates and have a sequence of actions that it will continue to roll through until that person you're trying to reach out to, they either reply to the email or they book a meeting with you and then they unenroll and will stop. So what that kind of actually looks like, and I will just go into automation and sequences. Again, this is Sales Pro and Enterprise, and you need to have a sales seat to create sequences. So if you do have Sales Pro or Enterprise and you're seeing automation and it just says workflows or it says workflows there, you can't see sequences, check you've got a paid sales seat because you will need it. If I go into sequences here, I've got a few test ones here, but I'm just going to go into create sequence. Now, a really good thing HubSpot has is all these pre-made ones that you could go through and you might use these as a skeleton for it, a guide, and build on it. Again, the way that HubSpot writes some of these things is going to be completely different to how you might write. But let's just do post-call / meeting follow-up sequence. So if I click on that and we go create sequence, it's going to just spit all this out for me. Now I can go through and all the steps. So when I was talking about those steps and the sequences of events, this is what it looks like. And if you're playing around in workflows, it's not too dissimilar to that. But you can see here, the first email will send them an email. First thing here will be an email. It'll send them this email it needs to come from an individual. So you can't do it from, let's say, an info at email. It has to come from myself direct. So it's a one-to-one email. And it looks, you get the marketing emails and they've got the unsubscribe and it looks like a marketing email.
It looks marketed,
Versus with these, it looks like a one-to-one email, like I'm emailing you direct. And as long as you don't write like a robot, you write like how you would normally, it'll look good.
Exactly,
But this sequence is that automated email. Then there's a manual email task just to follow up after 2 days. So that task gets assigned to the sales rep who's sending this. then they have to tick that off and say that they completed that. Often you can set up a second automated email and it will continue the sequence. So you don't actually need to do any manual tasks. So you can do that. Then 2 days after, if that person hasn't booked a call or they haven't replied to those emails, it will then continue on to day 5, get you to call them. You tick that off. It'll sit there and pause until that's been ticked off. Then there's another follow-up email. Then there's an automated email. And this just keeps going until they respond or book a meeting. But there's manual emails in here. I would set them all up as automated.
Absolutely.
And then so you just enroll them in this, and you can enroll them in HubSpot in Sequences. I mean, if I go as enroll contacts.
Yeah, if I remember correctly as well, you can only manually enroll if you're on professional, but if you're on enterprise, you can use workflows to enroll them automatically.
Yeah, which is huge. If you can manually automatically do this.
Yeah, your hands off.
Yeah, completely. It'll just send follow-up emails of, hey, just checking how you went with that quote.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, that's what I'm setting up for a client at the moment, is that they will send quotes and then there was no follow-up after. There was no 2 days later going, hey, just checking in, see how you're finding it, or a week later. They just send it and let me know if you need anything.
Yeah.
But we're setting it up now that it's going to send an email and then 3 days later, checking if you've got any questions about that quote. I also thought about this that might help you. And the thing with these emails as well is when you go to enroll, it allows you to customize it and personalize it, all of the emails in the sequence before sending it. And this is also accessible in your sales extension, in the email extension that we talked about earlier. You would have seen sequences there. You can click on that and enroll through your email browser too. So not commonly used, but it just gets rid of your, at its simplest, if it's a follow-up, all your follow-up's done.
Exactly.
Yeah, your team don't have to worry about anything there.
Yeah.
That's all I'll touch on for sequences. Do let us know if you've got any questions.
Yeah. Awesome.
And on to the next one.
One more.
Yeah, on to
Beautiful.
our final
Our last one.
pitfall, mistake, issue we see in portals.
Well, I copied you. I did another commonly missed feature as well. But this one we're going to talk about scoring. It's sometimes called lead scoring, HubSpot scoring, a couple of different names for it. But ultimately what lead scoring is assigning values, usually numbers, or points, you could call them as well, to your leads or your contacts, depending on the actions and activities they take. The idea is the higher points they have, the more, I guess, qualified they are for your product or service. And from there, you can do things like automations, or you could filter your lists based on the highest lead score if you're trying to do a bit of, cold calling or anything like that for sales. So it's a bit of a sneaky one because it does hide in a funny little place. So we'll get to that. If you go into your property settings, so that's if you go to settings, data management, properties, and if you search specifically HubSpot score. So if you search lead scoring, it's not going to come up. So this one is created by HubSpot only for contact properties. You can create custom ones for deals.
Companies, deals.
Pretty much any object.
I think companies, I haven't seen it on tickets, but
I haven't seen it on tickets before, but you could, I'm sure you could.
Surely.
Yeah. So if I go into here, what you'll see is it's quite different from our usual property setup. So we have two sides here. We've got our positive and negatives. If they get positive points or scores, it's going to add to their score. If you get negative ones, it's going to remove them. So negative ones, we're talking about things we don't want them to do, versus positive ones we do want them to do to get to that next stage. So it can be anything, which can be quite overwhelming sometimes. So it's always good to maybe jump into a spreadsheet or something.
Miro again,
and just kind of map out what kind of information is important for a high value lead. So we might be talking about the industry they're in. So maybe you only want to go after the health sector. We might be talking about the industry, the company size, how many times they've visited a certain web page.
Certain web pages, if they visit your pricing page, let's say,
exactly.
they're probably a little bit further down the funnel than someone who's just visiting your homepage.
Yeah, exactly. The average Joe. So if you can see here, you can see we've got some examples on our positive side of things. We've got anyone who's opted in for marketing information, viewed the pricing page, downloaded a form or a white paper. And then, for example, has at least one page view, has viewed neighborhood.co at least 10 times. They're continually coming back to your website. They probably want something to do with you.
They're pretty engaged, so like a salesperson calling them.
Absolutely.
That probably leads in the next part of it all. But
yeah, absolutely.
When they trigger these things to get someone on the phone to call them or have an automated email.
Yeah, that says, hey.
Yeah, anything.
Yep, absolutely. So to add something, you're going to go to add criteria. You can change the score with the little pencil up here. Now, we use the Fibonacci sequence. I feel like this is a Trav thing to talk about, but if you know a bit about this, I'm going to hand it over to you.
So the Fibonacci sequence, and I'm not going to try and talk about the history of kind of why and how it was created. It's actually the addition of the previous two numbers gets to the next number, but any math nerds,
Google it.
Math nerds, yeah, look it up. But it goes 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, 34, and kind of rolls in a sequence like that. I might have missed one or two numbers there.
I think you're pretty spot on, pretty good.
The reason why we use it in lead scoring is that when you're ranking some of these things, so again, we mentioned going to the pricing page, that's a pretty big thing.
Yep.
If they're requesting pricing, let's call it. That's a much more intentional action than visiting a blog. So you might give pricing page a 13, but visiting a blog is just 1, because to go see a blog, they've got to take a little bit of action to get there, but it's not a what's the wording there?
I think, like you said, intentional. They might pop on it through just
by chance
on Google, like looking it up kind of thing.
Visiting the neighborhood website, that's something that they would just come naturally from their interactions with us. But visiting a certain page, they need to click through and go through certain places. That's a lot more intent in that action. Yeah. So you would rank it higher. But the reason with the numbers is that between 8 and 13, it's a lot easier to define and talk about the difference between an 8 and a 13 than it is between an 8 and a 9.
Yeah, or a 5 and a 10 even, because it's all equal, 5 tens, yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to define the differences versus you can, like 8 and 9, like when the number is side by side, that's such a marginal little thing of going, you visited a blog, but then you also visited a pricing page. They're so similar.
Yeah. Awesome.
That's why we use the Fibonacci sequence.
Yeah, it is very useful. It allows us to be intentful when strategizing lead scoring. And I do think this area of HubSpot is forgotten, or you forget to use this because it is hidden away, but now you guys know where it is, so you should be using it. So back on creating it, you would press that to add your score, and for example, we could do that the category is an existing subscriber. I'm just picking something random. And the score is 1, but it could be that their company's valuation is over X amount, and that might get a higher one. You could continue to add to it as well. So you could say, if their pricing is this or below, score them a 2, but if their pricing is this or above, give them a 5. So you can segment it out a little bit as well. I would usually recommend starting with your positive ones and then jumping into the negative ones, because you don't want to be taking away too many points if it's not such a bad thing, you know what I mean? And then you would just click save, and that's going to happen in the background. When you go in your contact record, you can view that on their properties, see what score they have, and use it for multiple things.
I think just on the negatives, I think an example of a negative, I think the ones that we've got set up is that if they haven't been to a website in 3 months, then remove points, because then they're just not as engaged as someone who's actively on a website right now. We want to hear about the people who are actively engaged and who are more likely to have a conversation or convert than people who have disappeared for a year and haven't come back.
Yeah, absolutely.
it's such a lead scoring is such a sales kind of thing, but you can use it for anything. Like you can find your high value high value customers where you could, that criteria could be that if they've got closed won deals and the quantity of deals gives them more points, and you can find your most valuable customer. There's so many things you can use it for that aren't just, I guess, sales related and lead specific related.
Yeah, absolutely.
Find your high priority deals, your high value deals that you know that there might be a certain, like you talked about the criteria before, certain industry there might be that certain revenue you could give more scores to.
Yep. All right, that is it for our hug today. Thank you so much for popping along. Geordie, thanks for sitting down with me as well.
No worries.
Appreciate you. If you want to go back and listen to what we talked about today, or if you liked a tip and you just want to do a quick rewatch, the recording and slide deck will be available. Just head on over to our YouTube and we'll meet you over there. You can leave comments. Feel free to email us if you have any questions about what we talked about today. And also in our chat, of course, as well, we can try answer a couple more questions as well. Now we do have our next hug coming up, which we'll be talking about reporting and the best reports to set up when you first jump into HubSpot, which I think will be a good one.
I think that's an awesome one because it's so often you chat to people and you go, hey, what sort of reports would you like to see? And so many people just don't know what's possible. So they're like, I don't know. And it's like, well, here are some ones that we think are critical when you're first starting out in HubSpot.
Absolutely.
Once you've tidied up all this, next step is doing the reports. So.
Yeah, exactly. That will be a really good one. So that one will be on, let me just check my dates, the 28th of February. It's a leap year this year. Did you know that?
Didn't actually.
It's a leap year, guys. It's a leap year this year. Alrighty, well, that is everything. We'll see you on the next one, guys. Happy HubSpotting.
Thanks, guys.